What up, ladies and sinners? Welcome to the Sin City Sports Show presented by IE Sports Radio. This is IE Vegas. This show is built for the sports fan in Sin City of Las Vegas, the entertainment capital of the world. This is what we're about, man. The Sin City Sports Show. We've got a lot to talk about today because guess what? NFL is a year-round type thing. We've talked about that for years, right? The NFL is a year-round type thing. Their marketing is second level, second to none. Really nobody can mess with their marketing because it's at a different level. It doesn't matter if they're in the off season. It only lasts 21 weeks out of the year. Right now 22, figuring in week 18. And for whatever reason, the NFL has found a way, even in the off season, to get us excited or get us frustrated. Who knows? If you're a Raiders fan, maybe you're frustrated, but that's something we'll be touching on tonight. The Vegas Golden Knights are currently in a four-game slate. They're slid 4 games. They've had a 4-game loss or losing streak. We're going to talk about that a little bit. I think a lot of that has to do with some of the goaltending, but I may digress a little bit. Maybe our boys in the neutral zone might be able to touch base in the chat here a little bit. Tell me what their thoughts are on the Vegas Golden Knights, but to me, it might be the goaltending. This year. Still a point out of playoff positioning or wild card game, so they still have a shot. UNLV is about to kick off their the women's UNLV team just drew Arizona in the first round of the NCAA tournament, so they're about to kick off their NCAA tournament coming up here, the first round anyway, soon. And the Las Vegas Aces are gearing up for their first week of the season, which starts May 6th. So there's a lot to talk about, and all we have is an hour to talk about it. So as usual, we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about all of our favorite things that predicate around the Vegas sports show. And the big focus today will be the Raiders, the NFL, the free agency. As we talk about some of the other subjects, we'll fit them in as we can. But a lot of things going on in the NFL, right? And you can't really help but talk about them because, again, it's that marketing they do, man. They're so smart. It's a business that keeps going. And you know what? We're not upset about it because this could be Vegas could be the fastest growing sports market in all of America. And I'm saying it right here, right now. With a possible baseball team on the horizon, you got 4 now sporting entities that you can follow at all times, and we're talking about a Division I college as well. Vegas is really picking up. It's a huge deal right now in Vegas, and the buzz is definitely different. When you look at Twitter, when you see all the social medias, people are all about it, man, and it's very exciting. So we'll go ahead and kick off with what we think about free agency so far, man. Exciting, a lot of money being thrown around. I mean, what do you expect? So we'll get right into the state of the Raiders as it is. As a fan, I'm a bit frustrated because you are a team that had the 7th most cap space in basically all of the NFL leading into the free agency period. And right now, guess what? Free agency doesn't officially kick off essentially till tomorrow about 1 p.m., May 16th. But the legal tampering period began Monday. And that didn't begin until, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, yet deals were being done 5 minutes after. So yeah, the legal tampering period, and I'm holding up the sarcastic quotes with my fingers here in my own little man dungeon in my basement. 5 minutes in, we were getting massive deals, and what does that tell you? I'm not going to say it out loud. It is what it is. Just a lot of money being thrown around. The winners right now, geez. You have to put the Chargers up there. I think the Broncos have done a really good job of putting in pieces. The AFC West, actually, the division of the AFC West is ridiculously tough right now, and it's tough when you're a Raiders fan because you haven't seen anything happen yet. It's only been 2 days. Again, free agency officially starts tomorrow. It's only been 2 days. This is that first wave, is what they call it, the first wave of free agency, and a lot of signings have taken place. I think the Jaguars have spent a ton of money. They've had to overpay. When you win roughly, 5 games in 2 years, that's kind of what you have to do in order to get people here. It's a new regime. They have to do what they can to get athletes in the building. And in order to do that, when you're a really bad franchise, you basically just have to overpay. There's no way around it. The Christian Kirk deal is an overpay. There's no way I'm paying that guy $17 million a year to be a slot receiver. I hope he balls out because I felt like he kind of got the crap into the stick in Arizona with how well DeAndre Hopkins has done all this time. Kyler Murray, it's also, just kind of a slide at him. He can't really see over the line, so he probably can't see Christian Kirk. But I digress. It is what it is. Christian Kirk could end up being a superstar, especially with Doug Peterson taking over that offense and, training Trevor Lawrence to really see what's going on in NFL field, because the second year will be a big jump. I think the second year, with a lot of people being signed, that the offensive line is definitely getting attention over there. Trevor's going to have a little more time. The game's going to slow down a little bit, and you could see a different team in Jacksonville. And realistically, that whole division's kind of wide open. There's really no major team. I think if just Deshaun Watson was to play for Houston, I'd put them in the number one spot. The Colts don't have a quarterback yet. I still believe that Jimmy Garoppolo will end up there, or a possibility of Matt Ryan too, depending on what happens with the Deshaun Watson situation. That could be a trade that happens. He's an Atlanta native. He loves it there. And honestly, what a great situation that would be to trade Matt Ryan to a win or a win now type organization in the Colts, who have like 60 million in cap space, but their major holes are easily filled. It's mainly depth, because that Colts roster is pretty much stacked. All they need is a quarterback to distribute, as we saw last year. That's one thing that really failed them. Hey, Carson Wentz, he just didn't get it done. So a lot of things are happening. The NFL is moving. There's a lot of pieces in place. There's a lot of pieces on the move, and a lot of money being thrown out. So if I had to say winners right now, I'd probably give it to not San Diego Chargers. Doesn't matter where they go. They don't really have any fans. The Los Angeles Chargers, I'd definitely give it to them. Right now, they are what feels like they're hitting on all cylinders when it comes to their free agency. They see a window closing when it comes to that first contract for Justin Herbert. And with that said, you really want to go all in while you can, because I think when they started out, they had a little over 50 million in cap space. They traded for Khalil Mack. I thought that was an excellent trade for them for what they're looking for, and they got him for really pennies. A second and a sixth round pick is nothing for Khalil Mack, especially because he's 30 years old. He's going to be on the other side of Joey Bosa. That's a scary defensive line. So far, I think the Los Angeles Chargers are the winners of free agency. I know that the Jacksonville Jaguars spent a lot of money, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go from being a 2-win team to a 10-win team overnight. That's not how that works. I think the Chargers were a contender last year. Their defensive line failed them. Injuries kicked in as always, and that hurt. What they've done so far in free agency has really put them in position to compete for the AFC West. And in all honesty, man, the way the AFC West is looking is, if you win the AFC West, you should just get a bye week no matter what, because it is crazy stacked right now. And it's unfortunate because our Las Vegas Raiders almost look like they're at the bottom of the division looking up, because they really haven't done anything. They've signed one cornerback. Cornerback, Darius Phillips. He's a depth guy. He's not really going to do anything. I know he'll help in the return game. He's coming off an injury from last year. According to PFF, he actually graded better than any corner, with the exception of Casey Hayward, on the Raiders last year. So there's some positives there, but that felt like it was a couple years ago, because Eli Apple stepped in. Marlon Humphrey stepped in. I mean, sorry, not Marlon Humphreys. The other bookend corner there in Cincinnati stepped in. So this guy kind of took the back burner out of Western Michigan. This is really the only signing they've had. It's $1 million. 1 year, 2.25, or it's worth up to 2.25 million, 1.5 million guaranteed. So that's really the only thing the Raiders have done. There's a lot of buzz. They've had a lot of buzz so far in this free agency period. They've had a lot of players being linked to them, especially with the amount of cap space they have. But if we're being realistic, it feels like Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels have looked at this roster and they said, hey, let's stand pat. Let's talk about the roster real quick in place, okay? Before we really get into the minutia of all of free agency for the Raiders in itself, being that this is a Vegas show. We'll get back. I mean, we'll get back to the meat and potatoes when it comes to this. The Raiders have a left tackle. Colton Miller's a top 5 left tackle. You have a quarterback. He's arguably a top 10 quarterback in the league. I don't think really many people would argue that anymore. In all realism, if you put Derek Carr in a Colts jersey, if you put Derek Carr in a Chiefs jersey, as the great or the GOAT Charles Woodson stated, the guy would have similar stats to Mahomes. Would he be as good? No, I'm not going to say that. I don't think he has the same kind of arm talent. He has Derek Carr has elite arm talent. I'm just not going to sit here and tell you that he's going to be better than Mahomes. But if you put him in that roster with Andy Reid, you put him on that team with Andy Reid, and you have those types of weapons, I still think Derek Carr slings it, man. I still think they win a Super Bowl. Derek Carr has been on a bad franchise, a dysfunctional franchise. They're finally starting to turn the corner. When you look at this roster as a whole, though, you have your left tackle in place. That's one of the biggest things. You have a center. They must be confident in Andre James because Andre James, even though he was really shaky at the start of the year, finished last season, I think he was number 7 in the back half of the year. In the back half of the season, he was number 7 ranked overall as far as centers in the NFL. That's a massive improvement for where it was at the beginning of the year. Some of his play could have been because of the poor guard play. You never know, vice versa. But regardless, when you look at film, Andre James massively improved in pass protection and in the run game. So they must feel good about him because they renegotiated his deal. They pushed some money out. They created more cap space. So you have a left tackle. You have a center. In my opinion, you have either a right guard or a right tackle in Alex Leatherwood because you're not just going to let him go to waste after year 1. And he actually did improve at the right guard position. So you likely have a right guard right there. What you're looking for is a right tackle. But let's go back to what we do have. Okay, you have a slot receiver in Hunter Renfrow who could be one of the best route runners in the game. Dude breaks ankles and he creates space, especially on third down when you need him to. Last year, towards the end of the year, he played really well, but he just didn't get open as much. Why? Because he didn't really have the attention, or he had a lot of attention on him. You had your number 1 wide receiver in Henry Ruggs. We know what happened with him. He was gone. You had Darren Waller out for nearly 6 games. It's hard to get open when that happens. And yeah, Larry, I 100% agree, man. We got to stack the O-line. Unfortunately, it looks like we're waiting for some value signings, but we'll definitely talk about that a little bit. But we have a tight end in Darren Waller. He's a top 3 tight end in the league. There's no way around it, man. He's a top 3 tight end in the league. You can't get around that guy. 6'6", 250 pounds. He runs a 4.40. He's a physical specimen. You have a slot, you have a tight end, you have a left tackle, you have a center. You have arguably what is a really good running back in Josh Jacobs. You have his backup, Kenyon Drake. When he was healthy, man, I felt like he was lightning in a bottle, to be honest with you. I felt like the offense was really moving before the end of the season when Josh went on his run. Kenyon Drake did a great job of moving the sticks, whether it was catching the football or running between the tackles. It felt like the blocks were moving a little bit faster. He looked like he was faster getting to the hole than Josh is. Josh is a patient runner. Then it's one step downhill. Kenyon is just straight downhill from the beginning. When he picks a path, he goes and it's speed. You could just totally tell there was a difference in pace when Kenyon was there. So you have 2 running backs. I will argue, and I will say this. I'm not going to argue. I'm going to say it like this. I'm not quite certain or confident that Josh Jacobs will be on the roster day 1 of this NFL season. It would behoove the Raiders to try and make it work because he's only probably like a $3.5 million cap hit. But in my opinion, if you wanted to trade him, now's the time to do it. See if you can get a second-round pick from a running back needy team that doesn't really care about their second-round pick, and see what you can do because you could get some draft ammo out of him, knowing that you have Kenyon Drake, knowing that you're looking at other running backs in free agency because there's some studs at running backs that you could draft in the later rounds this year in the NFL draft. By the way, speaking of the NFL draft, it will be in Vegas this year. If you guys get a chance, make sure you guys just Google the NFL draft. Look at the plans. It's going to be free entry. You can go watch your favorite players from college get picked on your favorite teams. It's going to be an attraction because, as you guys know, it's in the Sin City, the entertainment capital of the world. It's going to be so cool. When the first-round picks get picked, they're going to be on a ferry in the Bellagio Fountains getting strolled right to the stage. It's going to be dope, all right? There's no way around it. That's going to be cool. And why wouldn't Vegas do anything big like that, right? Vegas is sick. I'm so happy the Raiders is there. Regardless, it's going to be an attraction. So get your chance. You don't have to worry about getting your tickets. It's going to be free entry. There's going to be events on the side as well. The 40-yard dash that you can do. Rich Eisen sponsors that, or he has a sponsor that helps him out with that. It helps raise money for charities. They have all kinds of attractions going to happen. Food, music, everything. It's going to be a blast, okay? It's Sin City. Make sure you guys are looking at the NFL draft and seeing what's partaking during those events. So with that said, back to our roster. We've kind of covered the offense. We got a running back. We got a quarterback. We got multiple running backs, to be exact. We have an elite tight end in this league. He's a mismatch for almost anybody. You have a slot receiver that can get open. He breaks ankles. You have your starting left tackle, which is what's really important in this league when you have a right-handed quarterback, and you have a starting center that's improving. And again, I think this new staff feels comfortable with Andre James because they wouldn't have extended him or restructured his deal today if that wasn't the case. Defensively, you have two edge rushers, man, that are monsters. They put pressure on the quarterback. They have speed. Do they need to be more disciplined on the edge during the run? Yes. I'm not going to nitpick right now. We're just talking about our roster and what we have in place. But they're excellent pass rushers, something that the Raiders have sorely needed for years. Yannick Ngakoue and Max Crosby, who just signed his extension and will be a Raider for a long time. When you look at your linebacking core, Divine Diablo is a stud. He stepped in at the will linebacker when he finally got healthy. We just kind of benched Corey Littleton. As soon as Divine Diablo entered that game, it was about 4 weeks left. It was a game changer, dude. There's no way you can convince me otherwise that as soon as Corey Littleton left and Jonathan Abrams left, that our team did not get better. Our defense did not get better. Those guys were lightning rods, and they did everything they could to improve. He was all over the field as a smaller will linebacker. I mean, the guy can cover. He was a strong safety at Virginia Tech in a 3-4 system. You guys know Virginia Tech just churns out defensive backs. This dude looks like a beast at the will linebacker position. He obviously spent some time in the weight room, and he's learning a lot from the middle linebacker, Denzel Perryman, who stepped in, and he did a great job of just seeking the ball, man, especially in the last 4 weeks. Casey Hayward was excellent. He won't be back. But I will say this, Trayvon Mullen is going to take over one of the corner positions. I do believe Trayvon Mullen has potential. He needs to show that he can stay healthy, but he has potential. He's definitely a number 2 corner. He's a starting corner in this league, and they're hard to find. And then when you look at our safety position, John Abrams is probably on his way out the door. If they can't find something to do with him inside the box, he's a liability in coverage. But the bright spot is you were able to trade up a few spots and get Trayvon Moehrig, who was believed to be the best safety in the draft last year. Kid was a stud last year. He had like a 77 rating according to PFF, which is excellent as a rookie. You were in the green. If you're in the green, you're playing really well in PFF. So that's positive news. On top of that, you have a starting nickel corner in Nate Hobbs, who was also ranked in the top 10 as far as nickel corners were concerned, according to PFF, and he was a rookie. So you're going to see improvements. What the Raiders are seeing, according to this roster as of right now, we have potential. You don't have to go out and spend a ton of money. So the fan in me was really frustrated today and yesterday when the Raiders didn't go out and spend big money. And I won't lie to you guys. I think we let some really good players go. And some of these contracts have been value contracts for what these players can do. And I'm a little upset the Raiders didn't spend that money because I'll put it like this. J.C. Jackson was my number one priority. To me, was the number one priority for the Raiders this offseason. He signed a 5-year deal, $82.5 million. That's only $16.5 million a year. I'll make this simple, guys. People were saying this man was going to make $18 to $20 million a year. And he deserved it because he's got more interceptions the last 2 years than the Raiders defense has had as a whole defense the last 2 years. He's got 17. The Raiders have 16 interceptions the last 2 years. Part of the reason why the Raiders have been a bottom-feeding defense for the last decade. All right? This guy could have really changed the makeup of your defense, and all you had to do was show him, hey, this is what we have to offer you. So let's put it in terms like this. Las Vegas, Nevada in itself has no state income tax. And I may be wrong about this, Larry. You let me know, man. I know you're always listening. You're always on the ball. I think the state income tax for California is roughly 12 to 14%. That's just the state income tax. We're not talking about the federal, which is 25 to 26%. We're talking about the state income tax in California, Los Angeles. This man is, if the Raiders would have offered the exact same contract, which was a very doable contract and probably should have happened for J.C. Jackson, this man would have been keeping 14% more of his money to stay with the Raiders. But he went to LA. Maybe it was a personal choice. I'm not sure. But I don't think the Raiders are trying to break the bank for athletes. And something tells me that there's got to be some sort of red flag. Because as you guys know, Dave Ziegler, our GM, and Josh McDaniels, our head coach, were both Patriots staff members last year. So maybe they saw J.C. Jackson up close and said, hey, he's not worth that money. I'm not sure. But what I can tell you J.C. Jackson can do is lock down the number one wide receiver of every opponent every week and he's going to give the rest of your defense a chance to really fly around and just go for the ball. So if you can lock down one guy, and he's not going to win every single battle, it's not realistic. But what you can see from the last 2 years is he's going to create turnovers. He's going to create mismatches. He's going to cause problems for the offenses you face. And that's what the Chargers inherited. And again, kudos to the Chargers. I think they're spending great money. I think they're bringing in guys that are really going to make a difference. They've done an excellent job of hitting those defensive needs. One, they needed a number one corner. Two, the middle of their defense was trash. They were giving up over 5 yards a carry last year, which ultimately was their demise, especially in that final game when the Raiders and Chargers were playing for a playoff bid. So the Chargers have done an excellent job. J.C. Jackson's one of those players that I feel like the Raiders could have very easily grabbed. And I thought he was a value guy at 16.5, because if he's projected to make 18 to 20 and he only gets signed for 16.5, and realistically it was only $40 million guaranteed, so when you look at it, he's really only guaranteeing 3 years. He's 26. You could cut him when he's 30. You got the prime of his, and you're only really going to have to pay him $40 million a year. That's what you're required to pay. It would be 48 total if you did all 3 years. So it's mind-boggling to me that the Raiders let a guy like him go. Now, Carlton Davis, I think, is on the same level as J.C. Jackson, slightly lower, right? It was 1A, maybe 1C, or actually it's one. I guess you could say A. Carlton's a B-plus type player. I think he just wanted to go back to Tampa Bay, but he's a perfect example of a corner that I think the Raiders couldn't miss on. And he signed a 3-year deal for $45 million. It's like $30 million guaranteed. That's $15 million a year. That's very affordable for a Raiders team that had $37 million in cap space. And what I can tell you is I do believe that the Derek Carr extension's on the way, which will free up another $15 to $20 million, and the Hunter Renfrow extension's on the way. Again, they can also extend Darren Waller, who's basically he's being paid pennies on the dollar compared to other tight ends that aren't even on his level at $7 million a year. You could extend him a couple more years, basically turn this year's salary into a bonus and add more cap space. On top of that, you could also extend Ngakoue. Because Ngakoue is only 26 years old. I know the Raiders are his fourth team, and a lot of that had to do with how bad Jacksonville is and how he wanted out, so he got traded a couple times. Ngakoue is only 26 years old, and he looked excellent last year. Excellent. If you could extend him a couple more years at about the same price he's in now, which is about $15 million, again, you could clear up half of that cap this year, which is $15 million, and you're looking at a team that's got over $40 million to spend. So I wouldn't panic. I'm just saying there's guys like those two corners I'm listing. I thought that DJ Chark was a receiver that the Raiders didn't want to miss on because he's a speedster. He's 6'4", 208 pounds, 4'3", 40. I mean, he's a beast. He's a great route runner, and he's going to be big. One of the big things the Raiders have to solve is the red zone issue. Imagine him at 6'4", Darren Waller at 6'6". You got Brian Edwards at 6'3", and you got to cover all three of those guys inside the 20-yard line. That's crazy to me. Plus Foster Moreau. It's unreal, man. So I'm just telling you, and that guy's DJ Chark signed to the Lions. He could have kept more of that money by coming to a state with no state income tax, but he didn't do it. So it's just nuts to me that the Raiders kind of let those kind of guys go. But this is what we're going to do. We're going to go to the break. I'm going to play some of my fellow IE Sports Radio drops because my IE Sports Radio, and I'll call them this, even though I just got basically adopted by Larry B. I'll call them my IE Sports Radio family. I'm going to play a couple of their drops. When we get back, we're going to talk about what I believe potentially the Raiders could do, because there's still some positive, there's still a silver lining to what's going on here and this upcoming wave 2 of free agents.
Damn! Green team! Set! Hey!
What's going on, football fans? This is me, your boy Larry B, inviting you to join myself, Callum Reynolds, Mike Pat, and John Felipe for one of the most electrifying football shows you have ever heard. 3 and Out, right here at IE Sports Radio. Recap of the week before, a preview of what's to come, and of course, 3 hardcore head-to-head primetime face-offs each week. You don't want to miss it.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy, awesome white tea. We are coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Welcome back, ladies and sinners, to IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show presented by IE Sports Radio, the show built for Vegas sports fans. We're back in it, man. We're still talking about the free agency, but before we do that, we're going to talk about a sponsor here at IE Sports Radio. The World is Semi-Pro, and this is the Southern California Warriors semi-pro football team. The World of Semi-Pro Sports is unlike any other sports organization. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get film, to try out for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. So you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get the second chance you have been waiting for as a SoCal athlete or as an athlete. Social media, Twitter handle is at SoCal Warriors. Instagram's the at Southern California _Warriors. And Facebook is the Southern California Warriors. So getting back into it, by the way, this is your host, Cale Henderson, with IE Sports Radio, man. This is the Sin City Sports Show. We are back. Get at me on my at Cale _Henderson on Twitter. I'm always willing to banter, always willing to talk Raiders, always willing to talk Vegas sports in general, but primarily Raiders, and that's kind of where we're going to get back into real quick before we venture off into the Vegas Golden Knights. Again, as a Raiders fan, I'm a little disappointed that we didn't see a lot of movement from the Raiders because they had a ton of cap. But what I can tell you is this is a regime that comes from the Patriots. Dave Ziegler, and I can tell you right now, Dave Ziegler, and I can tell you that Josh McDaniels are saying, hey, we can take some of these what players that people don't necessarily value as much as other teams do, and we can turn them into gold, man. We can literally press that coal and turn it into a diamond. No problem. But in all realism, I think we're in a situation where this regime has a plan, and it's something you just didn't feel like in past regimes. So you got to roll with that. You got to roll with what you got. You can't be upset with that, and you got to be happy that there's at least a plan in place. So this is what I can tell you right now. So far, what's in place or what's left is you have 15 of the top 30 players. 15 of the top 30 players are still available. And we're going into wave 2. So that means these players, their agents are likely getting calls. They're not getting the type of offers that they're looking for. So they're going to start taking cheaper deals. They could be 1, maybe 2-year deals with maybe a little more guaranteed money or money that is guaranteed in the first year. So either way, you're going to get a player that's going to ball out because there's a possibility that it could be their contract year. So here are potential free agents. Free agents I think the Raiders will still go after. Allen Robinson is number 8 on the top 100 list according to CBS Sports Network as far as an NFL free agent. Allen Robinson is somebody that I think the Raiders have been targeting since day one. Allen Robinson is a victim of playing for Chicago. I mean, that's the reality of it all. They haven't had a quarterback in Chicago, so Allen Robinson has played for bad teams, and there's a possibility he's leaving his prime. But I think the guy still has 1 or 2 good years left. The Raiders are slow playing Allen Robinson. I'm hoping he ends up a Raider because I think Derek Carr, Allen Robinson connection would be pretty scary. A-Rob wouldn't mess around, man. But that's someone I think you can get on a 2-year deal, and I think it would be a value deal for the Raiders compared to what he could be making. He is slated or is projected to make around $19 million a year. There's a possibility the Raiders could get him for $15 million a year. If the Raiders get him cheaper than the Jacksonville Jaguars got Christian Kirk, then it's a home run, right? Even if he still comes in at $19 million a year, I can tell you right now, he's going to come in and be an impact guy. Allen Robinson breaks ankles. I mean, he makes DBs look bad, and he's a dominant possession guy. He doesn't quite have the speed that I think this offense needs, which is why I believe they'll look into somebody else for more speed or maybe draft someone. But Allen Robinson's going to come in and he's going to do work. As far as like number 15 overall, Stephon Gilmore. I think he's a corner that's probably going to end up on the Raiders. I'm going to say it here right now. I think the signs are pointing towards Stephon Gilmore being a Raider. And I know what you guys are going to say. He's 31 years old. Maybe he's a little long in the tooth. Maybe he's past his prime. I don't believe that at all. I think Stephon Gilmore had a down year last year, and he still made the Pro Bowl. He only played 8 games. He was coming back from a season-ending injury from 2020. And the Patriots cut him because he wasn't going to be available. If you're not going to be available, that's something the Patriots do. Plus, the Patriots had J.C. Jackson going into his contract year. So I think they had some faith that they didn't necessarily need him. Would he have helped? Yes. But Stephon Gilmore is on the mend. He only played the last 8 games of the season for the Carolina Panthers. And according to PFF, he was a top 14 corner at 31. He didn't have a training camp. He didn't have workouts, an off-season program. No, he was recovering from a season-ending surgery. So the fact that he was in the top 14, the fact that he made the Pro Bowl after only playing 8 weeks is kind of crazy. That tells me this guy still has some juice. And if he comes in and he plays for the Raiders, he's going to lock down the number 1 wide receiver. Maybe it might not be as effective as J.C. Jackson would do for you. Younger guy at 26, maybe a little more tread on the tires. But I still think that Stephon Gilmore is going to be able to come in and really lock somebody down and free up a lot of these other players that we noted earlier, like a Nate Hobbs, like a Trayvon Mullen, like a Trayvon Morick, to allow you as a defense to really flow and defend the pass. Darius Williams is a corner out of Los Angeles. I don't necessarily think he's a realistic option for the Raiders. I just don't think he fits our defense and what we're trying to do. He's also 29. Again, this is somebody I think is leaving his prime, and I think his stats largely benefit from being opposite of Jalen Ramsey, who you could argue is the best corner in the game by far. So realistically, man, I think there's a lot of options. Tyrann Mathieu still available. The Chiefs didn't bring him back. They decided to go a tiny bit younger at that position. Tyrann Mathieu, he's actually been injury-free what feels like the last couple years. He was dynamic for its Chiefs defense that's been a contender and won a Super Bowl no more than a couple years ago. If the Raiders could land Tyrann Mathieu and put him opposite of Trayvon Moehrig, that's a scary secondary, man. That's a scary safety backfield. And you could probably get Tyrann Mathieu at this point for around $10 million a year if you wanted to. Maybe a 2 or 3 year deal, guarantee the first 2 years, get what's left of his career and dynamic ability, because he doesn't just play safety. He isn't just a free safety. He's a strong safety in the box. He's a nickel corner. Like, there's so many things you could do with the Tyrann Mathieu that you couldn't do with the Jonathan Abrams, and I think Tyrann Mathieu would come in and he'd do some extra work. I know a lot of Raiders fans aren't going to want to hear this, but there's a possibility that the number 23 overall free agent available, or just in general before free agency began, was Trent Brown. He was a former tackle for the Raiders. The problem with Trent Brown, I think it was the staff. I think John Gruden wore him out. I also think that Trent Brown was nearly killed by our training staff because they accidentally injected some oxygen in an IV and nearly killed him. He had to go to the hospital. He was out for weeks. A lot of folks didn't know about that, but I mean, it was reported. It was heavily reported by some of the guys like Vic Tafur and Mo Moton, some Raiders beat writers that they don't play around, man. They get to the facts, and if you're Trent Brown, I don't really blame him for having a little hostility towards a team that nearly kills you when you're contracted under them. Not to mention he had the weight issues. He couldn't stay on the field. He only played half the games that he was contracted for, but when he did, our offense was a different offense. And I think under this new regime, being that he's a Patriot through and through, I think he'd come in. I think he'd be a great addition to this offensive line. He's literally one of the only tackles in this league that I've ever seen maul Khalil Mack and get away with it. When we played the Bears in London in 2019, Khalil Mack had no chance. Literally, Trent Brown made his money that day. He beat up Khalil Mack, and we beat the Bears, who we just traded him to, pretty well in London. So what that tells me is Trent Brown at 28 years old, he still has some tread in the tires. He's shown on social media that he's changed up his diet. He's reinvigorated. He could be saying that every offseason to get another deal, but regardless, he's a big dude, and you can't really replace him, especially in pass protection. Akeem Nicks is still available. He's 32, but he's still got some tread. Jadeveon Clowney would be an interesting one if they could get him on a value deal to add in the pass rush. Imagine you have a guy in Yannick Ngakoue, you have Max Crosby, and then all of a sudden Jadeveon Clowney's there to help with the pass rush. Come on, man, that's crazy to me. Dwayne Brown's 36 years old. I think he's probably he'll get a chance, but he's probably past his prime. But that's just a number of people that are still available that haven't been signed yet. And Von Miller's another one. He might end up in Dallas. That'd be scary, but he might end up in Dallas. Teron Armstead could end up in Miami. So there's realistic options and there's not so realistic options. I think 4 of those guys that I just told you, on top of one that's just outside the top 30, was Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He's a wide receiver. He's a speed guy. He's, I think, 6'3", about 208 pounds. So measurables are pretty similar to DJ Chark. Is he as dynamic as DJ? No. But I think he could come in and he could play a significant role in the deep pass, make safeties respect him, a lot like what he did for Aaron Rodgers. You see a bunch of plays where he just really does a great job of creating separation. MVS is a possibility. He could be, again, another value signing at 27 years old, and he's ranked number 35 according to CBS. But yeah, again, it could be a guy you bring in. Maybe you bring him and Allen Robinson. Draft a wide receiver later in the rounds because there's a lot of speed there, and then focus on the lines. And yeah, Larry, I'm 100% agree with you, man. I think the offensive line needs a lot of care. I think they need a lot of work. And the defensive line too. Realistically, they only have 5 defensive linemen on the roster. You need at least 10 going into training camp, right? So there's some potential there, man. They have the foundation pieces in place. Raiders fans, I understand why you're frustrated, but I can tell you from an analytics standpoint, let this front office do work, because even if we can't do a ton of work this year, I can tell you that next year the Raiders will have roughly 123 million in cap space. So the future's bright. There's a lot of things that could go down. Tomorrow will be the official start of free agency. This will be what they call wave 2 of free agency. They have like 3 or 4 official waves, and then the rest is just like kind of value signings the rest of the year to kind of fill out training camps and figure out, who's going to be one of your starters or rotational pieces. I think wave 2 is where the Raiders are going to start making a splash. And it wouldn't surprise me if Stephon Gilmore is that first guy off the board. And we need him, trust me. We need him on the other side of Trayvon so that way we can help out our young safeties. But Tyrann Mathieu, in my opinion, would be a close second. And it wouldn't surprise me by the end of the week if Allen Robinson is signed as a Raider, which would be an amazing get. Transitioning over the Vegas Golden Knights, we're looking at this team, and I have some questions, man. There's still a team that's looking to contend for the third spot in the division, a wild card probably. They're a point out of the wild card as of right now, and they've had a 4-game skid. Listen, Vegas has been your cheat, as one of our IE Sports members said last year. Vegas has been a cheat code. You usually don't come into a league as an expansion team and become this successful this early. So they have the blueprint of how to be successful and how to compete for championships. They didn't win one, but they were damn close against the Washington Capitals just a couple years ago. They're a point out from being in the playoffs. As of right now, if the season were to end, they would be just outside. But it doesn't mean they can't go on a run. There's still a lot of time left. I think this year's team just doesn't have the same kind of goaltending it did before. And let me elaborate. I think losing Marc-Andre Fleury was huge. Marc-Andre Fleury, the flower, was unreal. His longevity, what he was able to do for the Penguins, definitely what he was able to do in the 3 to 4 years he was here in Vegas. I just can't tell you guys saying enough good things about Marc-Andre Fleury and what he was able to do for the team from a leadership standpoint and a competitive standpoint. He was a solid goalie, and I just feel like more goals are being let in. You have a younger goalie, man. And some of that's cap too, because now that some of that's cap space, right? Now that you've been in the league for a little while, you have to start making those tough decisions. You no longer have those expansion players that you were able to basically sign on the cheap or at a value while you're building your team. You're having to make harsh decisions now. So I do overall think that this is a really young hockey team, but they have to figure out their goalie situation. If they can upgrade, they need to. Otherwise, this young guy just has to grow, and they have to take the licks. There's still a possibility that this Vegas team goes on a run. At any time, these hockey teams can go on the run. Right now, players are probably sore. They're trying to mend up. Once that happens, all of a sudden, another gear kicks in. You see it almost every year with one or two teams in the NHL, and all of a sudden you see a team in the playoffs that's making a run that you didn't expect to. So I fully expect the Vegas Golden Knights to turn this around. They got the guys. Jack Eichel's a beast. I fully believe in him. And realistically, guys, Jonathan Marchand, he's still doing work. I mean, when you look at this, Max Pacioretty, when you look at this roster, you see some really good players. But from a goalie perspective, I feel like they have to get better there. If not get better, I think they just need to make sure they're helping the young guy out that's in goal. So we'll see what happens in that aspect, but I would not count the Vegas Golden Knights out. They have not missed the playoffs since they've been in, since their inception into the league, into Vegas, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if they continue to move forward. In UNLV sports, we kind of touched on at the beginning. I think that the UNLV women's team is really excited to be there. I see a picture of them on the Las Vegas Sun or the Las Vegas newspaper or the website. They drew Arizona, which is a tough draw in the first round, but they're excited, man. There's a total rebuild in progress with the men's basketball roster. That's in place. So there's a lot of news going on with UNLV. The football team it's usually really good, man. The football team isn't bad. I think they could compete this year. But the Mountain West is tough too. You really have to do a better job of recruiting. And the best way to do that is look at what Nevada's doing. Look at what Wyoming's doing, because they seem to have sustained success. You need to start looking at what those Boise State Broncos are doing. that's going to make a huge difference in how that works. UNLV quarterback Tate Martell is quitting football. That was announced on January. A bit of a blow considering Tate Martell could have easily been the starter this year. That guy's been on the transfer window left and right. So I'm not surprised there because it seems as though no matter where he goes, there's drama, and this guy's looking to transfer as soon as he doesn't win a spot. There just doesn't seem to be a lot of, and that's actually, I'm going to go ahead and get into that. There doesn't seem to be a lot of competition in today's college sports. It's like if these kids get recruited and they see a threat, very few athletes actually step up and try and win the position. It's all about just, hey, let's see what happens here, right? It's all about, oh, I'm not getting that immediate satisfaction from the coach. I'm not going to start next year. I'm not going to start right away. I'm going to look at the transfer portal. And that may be the monster that they've created recently, the NCAA has. But let's be real, Tate Martell is one of the perfect examples of that. He wasn't very good in Miami. He moved on from there. He started at Ohio State. He wasn't going to start over the guys that they had there. He moved on to Miami. And then from Miami, now he's here at UNLV. It's just one of those revolving doors with Tate Martell, and we're going to see a lot more of that. I mean, he was the pre-transfer portal, the new transfer portal, or NIL new transfer portal rules. And he was a perfect example of what happens when these kids face some sort of competition. It just seems to punch them in the face and they can't take it. So they move on to the next available opportunity. And he's got a lot of talent, otherwise you wouldn't get recruited by Ohio State. You wouldn't get recruited as a transfer by Miami. It is what it is, man. I think he still had a really good shot to start here. It's unfortunate. Sometimes you have to look into other means, but it seems like it's going to be an epidemic across college sports moving forward with this transfer portal rule. So we're going to go into commercial break. I'm going to play a few more of my my Sports Radio family member drops, and we're going to close out talking about the Las Vegas Aces because they are prepping for the season opening game on May 6th, and this could be an exciting year because they finished first in their division last year. So when we get back, we'll touch base on them.
Lopan, they didn't even want you. Heck, they didn't even want me. But you know what? Right about now, they have no choice. Looking for the real sports talk? Talk that's for us, the people? Look no further. The Wait a Minute Show, a prime time sports comedy cocktail that tucks you in at night. Join me and Lopan Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 2livestewsradio.com and Saturday 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the waitaminuteShow.com. Sounds like a plan to me. Ain't that right, Lopan?
Indeed.
What's up, sports fans? Are you looking for the latest on Northern California sports? Then take a trip out west with me, your host, Gina G, on Reppin' to NorCal Sports, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'll be bringing it to you all the way live every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And it's always a packed show. I'll bring you everything Dynastic 49ers, the bite of the San Jose Sharks, torture of the San Francisco Giants, the Golden State Warriors that we still believe. Then take you across the bay to the rise and grind of the Oakland A's. I've got you covered on college ball from the Cal Bears to the Stanford Cardinal, so that no matter what, reppin' in NorCal Sports is always reppin' the Bay. So if you bleed red and gold, or you're looking to keep an eye out west in them thar hills, don't miss me, Gina G, on Reppin' and NorCal Sports. Catch me every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and I'll have your fandom repped harder than a trio of defenders guarding Stephen Curry before his buzzer beater is Gucci.
What up, IE Sports Radio? Welcome back to the IE Vegas show, the Sin City Sports Show presented by IE Sports Radio, all things sports. Let's touch base on them a little real quick. They're one of our sponsors, actually, the owner. They pay the bills, so we got to give them some love. For the last 7.5 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. All the while, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and with your help, we are ready to take the next step. When you go to our website, iesportsradio.com, you'll see our Patreon link with 5 different tiers. The first one starting at just $5. $5, that's it. Get in on it, folks. What's up? This donation gets you a shout out on all 32 shows, all 32 of our shows. The higher the tiers, the better. Higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to our podcasting university, and even a chance to be featured on one of our segments on our flagship show, hosted by the man, the myth, the legend, Larry B. himself, The Defining Moment. Thank you all so much for supporting our show, IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. So I'm going to fade this out a tiny bit because we're going to close out the show. Kind of want to touch base on the Las Vegas Aces real quick. And before we do that, let's talk about that little competition IE Sports Radio has, right? The 2022 NFL Draft is right around the corner. IE Sports Radio is excited to announce its 3rd annual Mock Draft Challenge. The rules are simple. Predict all 32 first-round draft picks. Folks, I said this last week. If you can do that and you win it, you might as well get a lottery ticket, okay? Make some money while you're at it as well. Make millions of dollars, by the way. And also, send that stuff to my Venmo. I'll post that in the link. Love you all. But seriously, if you get that, you might as well get a lottery ticket. No trades, no modifications, no tricks. The participant who has the best mock draft will receive a shout out on one of our shows and their choice of an IE Sports Radio hat or shirt. For more information or to submit your mock, please reach out to Mike Pat at letswine_IESR. Good luck. That's IE Sports Radio trying to get you guys involved, man. Just make a mock, see what happens. I do it all the time for fun when I'm bored, sitting on my couch. Upset with my Raiders. Obsessing about ways to get better. Just do it. Let's have some fun. And it's in Vegas. Have fun there too. Las Vegas Aces are about to open up the season on Friday, May 6th. We're right around the corner, man. Right around the corner. And in all realism, I'm actually excited for this. I'm going to start following them a little bit more. It's one of my first introductions to the WNBA. Man, these girls can ball, okay? They'll break your ankles on the court. All right? I've seen some videos. They don't play around. They're making some of the dudes look bad. Give them a shot. It's pretty exciting. May 6th, they start out. They're selling season tickets as we speak. They'll be at Phoenix at the Footprint Center. They will make themselves at home in the Michelob Ultra Arena versus Seattle Sunday, May 8th. So we're just about a couple weeks, I would say a little less than a couple months away from the start of the season. Las Vegas finished first in their division last year. Awesome. I think it's going to be fun, man. Went 24-8 last year. Beasts. So we can't be mad at that. Mark Davis now owns them. I don't blame him. It looks like they're doing a great job, and he's doing a great job of promoting them. So, folks, if you're interested, if you're looking for something to do, that hashtag Vegas life, make sure you're looking into the Aces, looking into the Vegas Golden Knights, because they're going to be hot here in the next couple months while we wait for that Raiders and UNLV football season to start. So in all realism, as we close the show, let's touch base a little bit on what we talked about. We talked about free agency. It's crazy. Money's getting thrown out everywhere. NFL is just a license to print money, and they're doing a great job. There's no way around it. There's no way around it. They're doing an excellent job. I think the NFL is just, they figured out a formula to keep fans involved at all times, all year round, and that's probably what makes them so superior to a lot of other leagues. You can't seem to beat them when it comes to that. So we touched base on that. Potential for the Raiders. We're definitely going to touch base on that. I'd love to see what they do for the rest. There's still a ton of potential for them to add some excellent guys that value money while keeping cap space, because you want to make sure you do that by competing. They have a long road because the AFC West has gotten incredibly talented in what feels like overnight. Like, there's no way around that. They've gotten incredibly talented in what feels like overnight, and it's going to be a competition. Like I said, it's a joke, but it's for real. Whoever gets out of the AFC West should just be granted a first-round bye. Whoever wins that division is going to be nuts, because it's going to be a barn burner for 6 games every year, especially for the next couple of years while these rosters continue to rise. Vegas is on a slide. We recapped that. I do think they're gonna snap out of it. But they just got to make sure they help their goaltender out a little bit on the defensive end. UNLV about to kick off their NCAA tournament hopes. New rebuild going on in the men's basketball program, and a lot that the dean of athletics in general is doing to try and rebuild that program. And the athletics just really need some help. On top of that, the Las Vegas Aces are about to kick off. So we'll leave it at this, folks. I had a great time. IE Vegas is popping. We really want to put this show on the map. So anytime you guys get a chance, it costs you nothing to share. It costs you nothing to like the show. It costs you nothing to listen, really. But if you can't listen, you don't got the time, I totally understand. Just try and find a way to share. Share this content. Like the content, share the content. Let's spread it around, because I want to help Larry B put IE Vegas on the map. The Sin City Sports Show presented by IE Sports Radio is a blast for me. It's in my free time. I'm passionate about my Raiders. I'm passionate about the city of Las Vegas. I truly believe that we are on a path there in Vegas to make it one of the fastest growing sports markets in America. And they could have a new baseball team around the corner. Absolutely. You guys ever want to see any information, you want to keep up to date when it comes to the IE Sports Radio in general, make sure you guys are looking at on Twitter, socials, IE Sports Radio. I'm managing our social media account there for Sin City Sports Radio. You can get at me at SinCity_IESR, and you can catch me, your host, Cale Henderson of the Sin City Sports Show, at Cale_Henderson. I'm ready to talk. I'm ready to banter about sports all day long. But until next time, until next week, I'll give you an idea of what we're gonna think about here. We'll be another week into free agency. It's gonna be exciting to see what the Raiders do. Keep an eye on the social media, because that'll be a lot of the subject we cover. If you guys want me to add anything to the show, let me know. Hit me up. I'd be happy to do it, especially if it's Vegas related. All right. Till then, ladies and sinners, I want you guys to enjoy yourselves. Go out and party. Enjoy the entertainment capital of the world. And we will see you next week, same time, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you're in the Central Standard Time where I reside currently, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time to 10 p.m. Central Standard Time. Again, this is your host, Cale Henderson of the Sin City Sports Show. Peace.